his wife, and there's a... Okay. I don't know if I can summarize what he said. He was saying that he saw something on TV about Warren Buffett, and how even though Warren Buffett, have you all heard of Warren Buffett? He's a capital manager, a big investor, and all his life he's paid himself what we would consider maybe a minimal salary of about $100,000, lives modestly in his home, donated lots of money to various charities. He's a part of the Bill Gates Foundation. And Bill Gates, by the way, and some other billionaires have formed this foundation to where they are making tremendous effort to try to help people throughout the world with different things, and with hunger and medical care and things like that. And so that's an example of taking and having a purpose other than just creating money to hoard, you might say. They're using their tremendous wealth. Now, can we say that Warren Buffett has a love of money? Well, I think he does. Obviously, he keeps parlaying more wealth, but he's doing something good with it. He's not just passing on to his kids or whatever. He's giving away a lot of his wealth. What's Bill Gates' wife? I'm kind of trying to think of his wife's name. I can't think of it. But Bill Gates and his wife really started this, and that's so. Anyway. Now tell me what your question was again, because I forgot what your... Okay, all right. I was going to say, I can't remember if you had a question along with that. Yes, sir. No, he said that he indicated that I said that I was comfortable with my career because I have a good conscience and because I tried to live things, I tried to live my life and do my business the way I've explained to you folks, and that maybe I've had opportunities to maybe working with customers to make more on a particular product or service I'm offering than I did, because if I made more, it might be a disadvantage to the customer. And so what you're wanting to know then is, bottom line is, what was your final question?
So what life experience do you draw on to resist
all right.
that temptation?
There you go. What made me do all this? All right, good. First of all, I had a good upbringing with my parents. My parents lived together the whole time. They were never divorced. I had a good, solid Christian upbringing and a Bible-based upbringing. And so using principles from the Bible is what's really kept me. And so you could say then that's from God, because that's what I truly believe. And so it's principles from our Creator that are put forth in the Bible that I have tried to live by. And I've had in my business, you are absolutely right. For example, there are products that would be financial products that would maybe pay me twice as much of a commission than something else, but I did not do that. In other words, my goal was, when I met with people, Dr. Wahby and others, was to say and put them in, or put myself in their shoes. Now, I'm not trying to sound like a martyr here. I'm trying to tell you how I believe. And I would say, if I were him, what would I think would be the right thing for him, regardless of what I would make on it? And that's why I said initially, I could have made more money in my career than what I have made. But I tried to do it like if I tried to do to others, like I would want them to do to me. And I would try to offer products that would help them and solve their needs, not that would add more commission to me. Now, along the way, you're still going to get paid. But lots of times, I would take much less in a commission or a fee than what I could otherwise if I wanted to put a client in a different product. So, to answer directly and to repeat myself just briefly, the basis for this is my belief in the principles espoused in the Bible. I believe these to be sound. I believe the Creator put them in there because He knows a whole lot more than I do, and that therefore by following those principles, they'll work. And for me, they have. So I'm not here to tell everybody to become a Christian. I'm just saying this is how I feel. Okay, does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? You want me to try to repeat that? Where do we stop, basically, is what he's saying. How much do we keep accumulating? Better house, better cars, all that. Is that what you're saying? Or how do we know when to stop on that? Is that your question? First of all, my hearing's not the greatest. That's why I had to repeat it. Okay. Well, that's where applying the principles, it kind of goes with it. If, for example, the way I would view that is, all right, I could say I could afford to go out and buy a brand new Cadillac. But I don't need a new Cadillac. I've got a Ford that just runs just fine, and it's a nice car. And it's not that old. But I mean, so why do I need to do that? I don't have that need for that. In other words, to me, to try to show off with what I drive or my home is not important to me. I don't care. I certainly need to be, I have a measure of self-respect. And I certainly want to have a decent home and a decent car, and I do. But I have no desire, and I'm trying to, I don't know if this answers your question, to keep building bigger and bigger places. Now, I'm not trying to throw stones at somebody that does that. I'm saying that this is where each of us, and that's where I can't tell you, or Dr. Wahby can't tell you, where to go with that. You have to make those decisions. It's using principles in our lives and trying to think about things and try to determine, well, based on some things we've talked about, how far do you want to go? I don't know. What you do with a home and car is different than what I'd want to do, different with Dr. And I know Dr. Wahby, he lives very conservatively. And so it's a matter of personal choice. But when we start crossing the line is when our love for these things causes us to do things to compromise our standards so that we're maybe stepping on other people, or we're doing other things, cheating other people, or whatever in order to get that. So it's kind of a tough question to answer. All right? In other words, the opposite side of the fence. People say, okay, I'm just going to let the government take care of me. I'm going to be lazy and let welfare take. That's not good either. And because we need to do what we can individually to make our own living. In other words, we need to work, we need to, what was we said? You work hard, you enjoy it, you have self-satisfaction when you do that. And to allow somebody else to take care of everything, that's not a Bible principle, for one thing. Even in the Bible it says, he who is not willing to work does not eat. So in other words, we have the responsibility to do what we can for ourselves and our families. And we have the responsibility to work hard at what we do. It's just that we don't need to cross over and try to become something that we can't, or that, I'm repeating myself now, just going overbalance the other extreme. But we do need to work hard and not try to be dependent on others or the government to support us. Now, if we're disabled, we have there's things like that that's exceptions, obviously. There are people who have to have welfare means. But if we have the ability to work and we're just too lazy to do it, you're not going to have self-satisfaction there either. You're not going to like yourself for that. So that's not good.
So this really worked for me, so just to share it. So he said, I want you to cut out pictures out of a magazine. Now, of course, these days you just look it up on the internet and print it, but and paste them onto a board. All the things that you want. Why are you doing this? Why do you get up and go to work every day? What is the things that you want? So that was easy enough. So it's like, do you want a boat? Do you want a bigger house? Do you want this, that, and the other? So I did all of that and put the pictures together, and you brought it into him, and he says, okay, now what are you going to do with it if you get it? Why do you want it? And if you want it just because you want it, you'll never be happy. But if you want a motorhome so you can spend some time with your family or something and go camping, that's a good reason. But make sure you know that that's why you're doing it. That's why you want the motorhome, or whatever it is. And then he would make us do that every year. And I don't work with him anymore, but I still do it. And believe it or not, now one of my goals is actually downsizing. I'm trying to get rid of things to simplify my life. So that's what works for me. It's just asking yourself, okay, it's okay to want a bigger house, but once you get it, why do you want it? What are you going to do with it? If it's to impress other people, it'll never be big enough.
That's right.
My name and affiliation, Ian Rominger, a student in Dr. Wahby's class, Global Technology.
Well, this is really what I've been talking about here. Same thing. He's just backing up, as I got it, pretty much what we've talked about here this evening. And I think that was a good postscript to it. So appreciate that. So if there's nothing else, uh-oh. I think everybody heard that, don't you? So because there's a high percentage of students that cheat, maybe about 82% on average, I think he said, that, and so then if we don't want to do that, if we feel that we can't do that, we might be persecuted as a result of that. Maybe we won't be able to get ahead if it looks like they're winning the race. So how do we view that? How do we deal with that? Is that correct? Okay. Well, it goes along. It kind of goes along with what we said here before. Just because the majority are doing something, if they're doing something that's wrong, are you going to go ahead and do the same thing? Now, maybe you will not achieve initially, maybe some of the riches, if you will, that they will. But here again, you'll have a good conscience. You'll have good feelings about what you're doing. And, you're not likely really to be persecuted, I don't think, on something like that. I think that's something that, a lot of people aren't going to know whether you're doing it or not. So you have to form your values. And here again, if you're having to cheat, it's kind of like when you're in a corporation, if you're stepping on somebody else's toes, bad-mouthing, slandering one of your workers in order to get a promotion that maybe he was going to get and you're trying to get it, you're competing, is that right? I don't think so. Ultimately, who's going to lose ultimately? It's the cheaters. Now, they may get away with it for a while, but ultimately the cheaters will lose. Sometime it'll come back to bite them. And so my feelings on that are you go with what's right. Do what's right. In the long run, you can't lose by doing what's right. And maybe maybe somebody else will have more stuff or maybe a little higher position. But you'll have the peace of mind knowing that you did the right thing. Well, first of all, our conscience, all right, he said, how can we deal with this if some people just, if they cheat or whatever, and they end up convincing themselves that this is okay. And so then and if they're getting away with that, is that what you're asking? Okay. Well, a conscience is that little thing sits on our shoulder here that tells us, oh, wait a minute, I don't know if you ought to do that. However, we can train our conscience, because if we don't train our conscience, it's not going to give us good advice. So therefore, someone who maybe cheats on a test and gets away with it, and then, oh, okay, I got good results with that, and I cheat on another test, and I cheat on another test. After a while, it isn't going to bother them. Their conscience, he used the word, I believe, seared, kind of like you fry it. It's kind of like if you sear something, you kill it. But anyway, your conscience becomes deadened when you continue to do that. And so that's not going to help. Therefore, you have to keep thinking about and instilling your mind with the right kind of moral values. Because if you don't think about the right things, then sometimes these bad things will creep in and they'll cause you to maybe do things that otherwise you wouldn't do. So you can't rely totally on your conscience without trying to train your conscience. You have to train it to do the right things. In other words, if we use the principles, just the principles we've talked about tonight, which aren't end-all be-all, but I mean these are 4 principles. If we train ourselves and really try to abide by those, then we'll be okay. But if we forget about it, we say, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and then we forget about it, we start getting influenced by other things, then we're going to get off track. And then we're going to end up being just, we're going to be unbalanced, and we're going to get into areas perhaps that later on we might regret. So we want to be careful we don't let our conscience be seared, and therefore try to use the proper principles to keep us on the right way. I don't know if that's answering your question or not. For letting me be here and talk with you today, and I certainly I certainly hope that you all have true success in your careers. You do a good job, and I know you'll learn a lot from this class here. So once again, thank you.